Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Father and Son podcast. This one's going to be our first episode, but we have a few episodes already written up. This is a concept we thought of over a year ago. We just didn't get around to doing it yet. And in today's episode, among some other random things, we'll be talking about homeschooling. If you've been following our videos, you've seen the situation with school, and my son's been pulled out of school for now until things are resolved and has been homeschooling. So now I'm here with my son. We're actually heading back to Chapleau right now. So Chase, how's homeschooling been going?
I find it very educational. I learn a lot more useful things and just a lot more things in general than I would from school. I learn things like, I don't know if this is right, but culinary arts or culinary arts. I learn basic law. I dab a bit into politics. Then there's statistical math and stuff like that. Like a wheels to a shop file and more.
Yeah, so we put some of our projects online. You may have seen some of them. Basically, because it's not a group thing and a set curriculum, which is a little bit slower and they gotta wait for everyone to be caught up, we can work a lot faster. So we've been going through a lot more lessons and holding more stuff up. I think he said politics there. We don't really go so much into politics other than like watching question period and some of the House of Commons procedures. But what we're actually learning is more of the civil process, the government structure from municipal, provincial, federal governments, how those types of things work. And then for law, we've been touching on basically things that affect us. So we looked at the rules of civil procedure. So there's a bunch of rules on how you bring a civil lawsuit forward. Mostly we looked at the statement of claim. How do you make your statement of claim? Then how to make a proper affidavit, which you have to attach to the statement of claim. And your exhibits, which is the evidence. So when you're submitting evidence, it doesn't directly get attached to something like a statement of claim. The statement of claim is a point form, quick review of what happened. Then in your affidavit, you provide a more elaborate description of what happened, and then you swear that that's the truth. So an affidavit is always sworn. It's signed in front of a commissioner. And that's what you sign your exhibits to. So your evidence basically needs to be sworn. It needs to be tied to an affidavit. Each exhibit needs to be signed. And then that gets tied to the statement of claim, and we can send that off. Now, a statement of claim opens a claim and opens a court process. What does the other side have to do after we've served them with the statement of claim?
I believe they can either reply within 20 days or they can ask for an extend, which gives them 10 extra days saying that they will respond.
Yeah, so it's basically not necessarily an extension. It's instead of filing your response or your defense right away, you can file an intent to defend, which will give you an extra 10 days. So if you think that the 20 days is not enough for you to respond, you can file a notice of defense, which is a very brief form. You just say, I intend to submit a defense, and you submit that into court, and that gives you an extra 10 days. But basically, they have a maximum of 30 days to respond. And then we're also given an opportunity to provide a reply. So if in their response, for example, if they bring forth a counterclaim, or if they make any kind of allegations or bring forth any information that you didn't already address in your statement of claim, the reply gives you an opportunity to speak to those things. And then it's done. There should be no one else filing anything else for that time being. So you've got statement of claim, their response, and a reply if it was necessary. Now, that starts the process, but do you remember what we learned after that, where once a claim is started, you still don't really have a court date? How do you get a court date to move things forward?
It's called a motion.
You say you have to file a motion.
You have to file a motion.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to file a motion for whatever you're requesting. So like the normal motion would be a motion for judgment or summary judgment, whatever it is, and that won't give you a court date for a trial right away, but it'll give you a court date where, they'll look at the merits, they'll direct you to where they should go. Typically, they'll send you to a pre-trial, and a pre-trial is basically almost like early resolution. You'll be in front of a judge, and the idea is to see that if it's possible to obtain a resolution that both parties can agree on. And if it's not possible to obtain a resolution, then that will move forward to a trial. But you don't just go straight to a trial. You'll be assigned a trial management judge. The trial management judge will have as many court dates as necessary, but typically it's done quickly. So they'll have a court date, and you'll show up with all of your affidavits, all of your evidence filed, and the judge will look through it to see what will move on, what will not move on. And this is where parties can file motions to suppress certain evidence. You often see people try to file a motion to dismiss, which is basically the opposite of the motion for judgment. So they're trying to have the court dismissed, or the case dismissed, and if they file that motion, now the judge has to hear it. So you have to argue why this case should not be dismissed. But basically, any action you want to happen in a court case requires a motion. So once you've filed everything, now your court case is open, you're ready to start, but you need motions to get your court dates and to get in front of a judge and get it moving. Now, that was civil procedure. We talked a little bit about criminal procedures and not quite criminal procedures like the Provincial Offences Act, traffic court, and all of these other things. What's the main difference in these other courts? Do you remember?
I believe it was you go against like big corporations or.
Okay, so civil matters would be against a corporation or two people against each other. And yes, sometimes the government does participate in civil matters, but typically it'd be because someone's suing the government. In criminal court, though, you have a prosecutor.
So basically, in criminal court, it's the government that's attacking you, and you have to defend yourself.
Yeah, it's something like that. So in civil court is, two private parties, essentially. It's a lawsuit between two people or corporations. Like I said, oftentimes it's someone suing the government, and that's done in civil court as well. But criminal court has a prosecutor. So in criminal court or traffic court or these other lower courts, charges were pressed. Someone fined you, gave you a fine, gave you a ticket, gave you a charge of some kind. And now you have the government versus the person who was fined, and you are forced to defend yourself. So it's very different. For example, in a civil case, typically there's not a defendant. There's an applicant and a respondent. But it's not like the Crown, the prosecution, and a defendant. It's slightly different. That's a criminal case thing. Whereas in civil court, the person who started it will be the applicant, the person who's responding will be the respondent. But it's not necessarily seen always as one person attacking another, right? Like the respondent has the right to bring a counterclaim forward. And now, even though he's the respondent, he's still the plaintiff in his own counterclaim. So civil matters are between two people, and these other courts are essentially government versus someone who violated whatever statute it is that brought them there. Now, we also looked a little bit at privacy law. That's basically everything that surrounds auditing and surrounds journalism and media. One party consent and allowed to record in public, along with the civil rights that accompany that. So we touch those often. Did we look at any other kinds of law? Do you remember?
There was like all the court rooms that you had.
The different courtrooms and all that, but that's just all part of basically introduction to law, which is what we touched.
Privacy law, traffic law.
Yeah, privacy law. We looked at a lot of traffic laws because Chase is going to be getting ready to do his driver's test soonish. And then you said we talk statistics, like statistical math. We do basically practical math and economics. So we study a lot of those things, the markets, the dollar, what affects them, how they're going up and down, inflation, and all of the other things that are affecting us in real life now. We also look at accounting. We operate businesses, so we already have to do a lot of business accounting, but just the general rules behind accounting, which is the type of practical math that everyone should learn. Like, you're much better off learning accounting than you are learning calculus. Do you even know what calculus is when I say that?
Well, I know I've heard of it, but I don't think we've ever learned it in class yet.
No, you usually don't touch much calculus in high school, especially not in grade 9. Calculus is like university type of math, but it's literally like advanced equations that require an advanced calculator. You're not doing those calculations by hand. And essentially, when it comes to the practicality of it, I mean, unless you're going to be some kind of theoretical physicist, guys, if any of you use calculus for a daily basis, like as part of your job, please comment. I'm actually genuinely curious as to how many professions outside of teaching math actually use calculus. Because it feels to me like if you're learning that type of advanced math, you're learning it to become a math teacher. It's not that practical in life. And then we got to think of now AI and all of these other programs capable of doing this advanced math for us. You know, like, I learned calculus. It sucked. It was very complex for a math. I much preferred discrete math, honestly. It could be as complex, but in different ways and more applicable ways. But calculus is just off the charts. And these days, I mean, I could ask Grok to solve any equation and he'll solve it. There's no need for me to have learnt high-level calculus. I don't need it. So that's where the difference in practical math is. Practical math is the type of math that we'll use, which often includes algebra. You know, we do some algebra, especially in shop class. When we're doing the measurements, we take the time to go through the math of it. One example, if you've seen the Pyro's new habitat that we built not long ago, in the video, Chase says it's about 3 times bigger. Do you remember what the exact calculation was?
I think it was like, it's either like 2.8.
No, it was more than 3. It was more than 3. I'm pretty sure it was like 3.26. So we actually calculated the volume of Pyro's old habitat. Then we calculated the volume of the new one. And the new one is 3.26 times bigger than the old one in volume. That's the total volume. But we do that type of practical math. We were building triangles the other day, so we had to use a little bit of math to figure out what the long one is. I mean, in construction, we typically can just measure these things. You have a measuring tape. We figure it out differently, but this time we did the math to figure out the measurements ahead of time, cut our pieces purely on the math that we did, and it fit together like it was supposed to, which meant that our math was good. We've also been touching a little bit of psychology in basically human behavior. And honestly, this all comes with the auditing and everything like that. It's all in the same world. Why are people reacting the way they do? And 2 of the biggest things we look at in psychology, which is literally first year psychology. If you take first year psychology in university, you're going to take 2 psychology classes. One of them is going to be called motivation, and the other one's going to be called emotions. These are 2 of the biggest factors in human behavior. Practically everything is tied back to that. So motivation, we know, is why someone is doing something. And motivation is a very powerful thing. right? You talk about underachievers that we see all the time. So you see people with amazing talent, amazing potential, very intelligent people that don't achieve much, or at least don't achieve much in the way that society would measure. If you look at their world, what they enjoy, what they do, they could be very highly accomplished in that world, but it's not something that society truly recognizes. So they'll look at these people and they'll be like, well, these people could have cured cancer. Instead, they're doing something else. Well, that's all motivation. The fact is that anyone, no matter how talented or intelligent they are, needs to be motivated to do something. They need to have that motivation. And that's something that often lacks in traditional schooling. Because they have to cater to a group, they can't necessarily cater to one student. They can't like really learn that the in and outs of that student and what truly motivates that student. How do we motivate the student to achieve their true potential? That's something that homeschooling can touch a lot easier. There's also personalized learning styles, and schools are getting better at identifying that and realizing that not everyone learns the same way. But when you're having to teach a group, you pretty much have to settle on a learning style. That's the way that you're teaching, and you can help other students a little bit, but you can't focus all of your time on them. Whereas homeschooling, working one-on-one with a child, all of a sudden we can go into their interests and find the things that motivate them and find that motivation, which makes it not just easier and funner, not just easier, but funner and easier to retain the information, right? If you enjoy doing it and you like what you're doing and you like learning it, you're a lot more likely to retain it. So if I were to ask you right now, do you remember what you did in the last month or two at the high school? Do you remember anything you've learned, any actual things that you did?
I remember specifically in history class, we were learning about I think it was World War One with the French skeleton and all that. For English, it was sort of all around, just like documentaries, all this, reading books. There was actually a good book we read called The Outsiders. In French, once again, I dislike French. So it was just a lot of grammar, a lot of drilling into my brain. I don't remember exactly what in grammar, but it was just grammar and making sure how to sentence paragraphs and all that. And
what was your last class? You had 40
art.
Art. All right. That's not bad. So basically those were his 4 high school classes there. So art, history, French, and English. And we tried to replace that with something similar. So when he goes back to school, one of the things I've said now is like they have to honor his credits, right? They can't look at it like he missed a month of school. He did not miss a month of school. He did a month of homeschooling. So they can't have him catch up. But I have works that I can give them. So if they need something to evaluate, I have things that we'll be able to send to them that will fall in those categories that they'll be able to evaluate and will fit properly. Now, we were just talking about this not long ago when it comes to languages. So we don't necessarily do French and English as languages, but we do journalism, which is very similar and practices the same skills. So in the world of journalism, we're not so worried about him having to write the entire article or whatever it is himself and having no errors. You know what I mean? He's allowed to use his tools. So he'll write an article. Often they're AI assistants, so we get a lot of the information from AI, and then we have to write it. If anyone's using AI assistant, you'll notice that they give you something that's basically written by a robot, and you can tell it's written by a robot. So we'll verify the information, we'll take what's good of it, and we'll rewrite it so that it sounds like it's been written by a human. Because there are ways and certain programs where you can ask them to write by a human, but we get basically this output that's a very, very robotic. It's very fact-based, and we take that and we translate it into something better. So it's corrected for him. We check the correction, we check everything there, but the learning is still done right? You're still getting that proper grammar. You're still learning how to read and write a proper article and how all these things is done. But you're not so much being tested and then graded and like, oh, you had 3 typos here and you made a mistake there. Like the computer corrects it for you. So the written portion of it has been corrected before we produce, but the work was still put in. Then we practice that reading and writing and the narration of it, which is an additional skill that's not typically practiced. You'll see a lot of people who are great at reading and writing, great in English. Then comes time for public speaking or doing a presentation in front of class, and they have a very hard time with that. So the narrating to a microphone helps a lot. It's the same concept. You might not be in front of a person, but it's being recorded, will be reviewed later. Other people will hear it, and it gets them used to that thing. So we do quite a bit of journalism, and we also tie history into that. So we've done a few articles that tie, but we just often talk about the world and the unfortunate fact that history repeats itself, and where we could see that happening now. All right, I'm thinking of what other subjects do we cover? Can you think of anything? Oh wait, you had art. Yeah, music as well. I forgot about that. But you had art is one of your school classes, so we touch art a lot. Chase likes to draw, likes to do art, so he does a lot of drawing art. And then we've also worked, there's the video of Pyro's background, just a little stuff like that. We're starting to work in different types of art, building dioramas, so it's more in the more advanced crafting, but it's still art. We're looking into getting some paint and canvases, so we practice a little bit of painting. And then the one that we're touching that's not really touched at school is digital art. So we've already started showing Chase how to make certain logos, certain animations. Again, a lot of that animations that we make is AI assistant, but it still requires the knowledge of how to do it and the basic knowledge of what you want to see. And most of the time when we're talking about animating something, we're building this logo, this scene, whatever it is, and then asking the AI to turn it into a video. So it handles most of the animation, but we still had to do the graphics design and put that work into it. And that's art. It takes not just the knowledge, but it takes that little bit of a artful eye. You have to be creative. You have to be able to visualize what you want to see, then put it on screen. And then one thing we'll be working on shortly is turning drawn pictures into digital art and then into animations. So he'll be able to draw something and then we'll bring it to life digitally. And then, like Chase just said, we also have music that we added onto it. So for music, I'm not a musician, but we're touching again both traditional music and digital music. So we've watched a few videos on not just the basics to start creating digital music, but the software. You know, what softwares were easiest to work with, which one we can get. We picked the software, we started to learn it a little bit. And the idea is by the end of this semester, Chase is going to create a full-on song. So we're going to create digital music. He's going to voice a song. From there, he also has voice lessons. Now, this is something that we were already paying for and he was already doing while he was in school. But now it's part of his homeschooling. So he has voice lessons. And he also does karaoke on Friday nights at the Chapleau Hub. So if you guys are in Chapleau and you want to see Chase sing, go out there, give him a crowd.
Oh, culinary arts was pretty simple.
Oh yeah, so there was the culinary arts, as Chase was saying. So essentially, when I was in high school, I think we would call it home ec type class, but it's basically teaching him to be independent. So he's making one meal per day, and then picks recipes for like desserts and stuff to bake. So we get him learning how to make these things himself, start to finish. And is going quite well. What are some of the things you've made so far?
Well, so far, we made quite a few different like breakfast things and explored in that area. But I've also learned how to make a nice spaghetti sauce. I've learned how to make a couple desserts now with like a blueberry cake, and we did this one score bar type dessert. I learned once again, back to the breakfasts, I learned a lot about how to properly cook an egg and everything you need to do to prepare the area and stuff like that.
Prepare the area. No, it lasts, but basically, he's like talking about keeping it clean. Like, what was it the other day? It was the ham. So we were making ham, and we took the ham out of the pack, and then now there was like ham juice on the cutting board. And then I look down, and there's bread on the cutting board. So I'm like, dude, what the fuck you doing? Yes, sometimes I speak like that. I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, you're putting the bread on the gross ham juice. And he's like, what are you talking about? There's no juice, it's dry. Yeah, because the bread soaked it up, man. But yeah, I didn't actually say that part, but that's why it's dry now. There was no more ham juice on the cutting board because the bread soaked it up. But I mean, I guess we got some ham bread. It's not like it was raw chicken that could make us sick or anything.
Extra flavor, man.
It was flavor, yeah. But yeah, that was only one slice of bread. It wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, learn to keep things clean. Don't contaminate your areas. Prepare the area ahead of time. That's one thing that I can hate sometimes when I start cooking and all of a sudden I'm missing something. So now I've got eggs cooking on the thing and I'm going around looking for another pan to start cooking something else when we should have just prepared it all ahead of time, get everything ready before we start cooking. We also learned to properly time things. If your hash browns are going to take 15-20 minutes to cook, well, don't start cooking your eggs at the same time, because now your eggs are going to be cooked 10 minutes ahead of time. So, start your hash browns proper time, and then time management when it comes to it. Now that I'm thinking that we should watch some shows like MasterChef, they touch a lot of that time management thing. You only have an hour to cook the whole meal, so they have to time everything properly, start everything at the proper time. Those are pretty good shows. Have you ever watched a show like that? Do you know what it is?
Absolutely. Like in the past, I would watch it for like an hour or two a day. Now, still, like here and there, I still watch it. But in the living room, Amir likes to watch these cooking shows, and I very enjoyed it. Actually, for a while, I wanted to be a chef, but later on, I moved on to something else.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to be a chef. Knowing how to cook is cool, but I don't think I would cook for a living. All right. That's pretty much an update on everything we touched in homeschooling. Now, we'll talk about the traditional schooling from a bit. One of the things that, has been mentioned, and we knew this from the very beginning, it's something we're trying to get him back into school from. It's not because traditional school is better. We've established that now. When it comes to education, to learning, to being able to really prepare him for the future and for what he wants, homeschooling would actually, maybe not under all circumstances, but our type of homeschooling actually benefits him more in the education sector. But it lacks that social aspect. He still has friends. He can still hang out with his friends after school, and still has friends that he plays with online and all that. But there's no group projects. There's no kids to work with. There's no socializing in class. What else are you missing from a real school?
I'm also missing sports. I love my sports. I'm everywhere. I'm on the basketball, volleyball, badminton, but since then, I've been unable to play sports and be as active as I used to.
Is basketball season started already?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, it started already. Now, there's things that were looked at, but I mean, they have to withdraw their trespasses and all that first. But apparently, even through homeschooling, like basically when you homeschool, you can be registered with the school board. So you can homeschool and then turn your stuff in with that school board. But by being registered with the school board, it's actually possible to have sports access. So it'd actually be possible for a homeschooling student to play on a high school sports team. So, if it goes long term, we can start looking at that. There's also just other activities that they have, concerts, little field trips. But actually, speaking of field trips, we actually just did one today. So we drove out to Sudbury. And what did we do today?
Today we went and visited the Every Voice Matters event in Sudbury, which is very both educational and inspirational. We also went to was it the power court or there's something like
Energy court.
Energy court, and we prepared some mitts, hats, sweatshirts, like a couple $100 worth. He passed as well, and we went and handed out to the homeless, and they're all very thankful, and it's just a nice interaction.
That was pretty good. So that's non-scripted, by the way, guys. It's like we're literally on the road. We're not reading any scripts. We're offhand. That was more of a composed answer than I was expecting from him. But yeah, basically we came down. We stopped at Northern Exotics. What did we get at Northern Exotics?
We got a fruit fly culture, a roach starter culture, and then we also got this cool frog that we saw. It's a tree frog, or milk tree frog, something like that.
It's an Amazon milk frog. And we'll put it in one of our videos so you guys can see it. It's pretty cool. I was looking at getting some before and maybe setting them up for breeding. But I don't know, it's like I found a breeder. I got a good price for getting a few of them, but you can't. Not that you can't, it's frowned on. I just don't like doing that. You know what I mean? I couldn't get 2 males and 1 female from this guy because they're all the same bloodline. We just passed the car?
Yeah.
Was it still in there?
It's still in there, but it's like rolled over even more.
Interesting. So we just passed by the crashed car. We have video of it. We stopped on the way here. So when we drove by on the way, it was in the ditch, like rolled on its side. And now Chase says that it's still there, so it hasn't been picked up yet. But it's rolled over even more.
Like it's almost upside down now.
Yeah, like it was lying on its side, and now it'd be lying like top down. But yeah, these Northern Ontario roads are not great. We were actually quite lucky. It was like a snowstorm today, but we left this afternoon before it started really storming. We got a little bit of snow, but it wasn't bad at all. And our roads were well graded. And then we're coming back late enough tonight that the snow stopped and everything's well graded. We have nice roads right now. But yeah, we went to Northern Exotics. We got our Amazon tree frog. I also picked up 4 baby crested geckos from one of our buddies who breeds them. That's Chris. Thanks, by the way, if you're listening. And then we went and did a couple LCBO audits. How are those go?
They went fairly well. There's no cops called in this time. There was the one store where everything was going well, and then we went to go ask the security card questions, and then they told us that we couldn't record here, which obviously is not the truth.
Yeah, so you guys will get to see the video if you're watching the videos, but basically that's on me. But hey, it's what we do as auditors. You know, I had to prompt him a little bit. But basically everything was going well. This guy did give me a bunch of dirty looks. Like, we could tell that he did not like the fact that we had a camera. The cashier, Madame Cashier, if you happen to find us and are listening to this, you did an awesome job until that very last second there. But the cashier was awesome. She knew we were recording. She knew it was being recorded. I asked her about thefts and, you know, the whole trafficking ring thing. And she said that that's not something they see there, but just normal thefts is something that happens on a daily. People go in there and steal alcohol on the daily. But basically everything was good. I paid for the product. We're ready to leave. And then I turned the camera towards the security guard, and I asked the security guard if he's ever seen anyone get arrested for recording in an LCBO. And then the security guard right away is like, "Don't record me." And then the cashier basically said, "Yeah, you can't record in here." But this is what I mean by she did a great job regardless. She said, "Yeah, you can't record in here," but she made no effort to stop me. She made, like, you know what I mean? She gave me my change and I was walking out. She knew it very well. So she said the words, "Yeah, you can't record in here." But her body language and everything she was doing wasn't like, "Yeah, I'm going to stop you from recording." Even the security guard, even though he said that, he didn't step in our direction or do anything. He was just like, "Don't put me on camera." You know, that was how he was. And then we went to Energy Court, and how were they with cameras?
All the homeless people were like, "Yeah, dude, it's sick. I want to be recorded. I want to spread awareness." But then there was what you call herself, the director or
supervisor.
The supervisor, and she was very unhappy. She's like, stop exploiting the people. Meanwhile, everyone else is having a jolly time. We're giving them snacks and food, and they're like, we love you, dude. And she's just screaming at us. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, that's literally it. So the supervisor, the people who are working there are like trying to chase us away while we're giving out hot packs, like those hand warmers and feet warmers. We had 2 Smiths snacks. So we're handing stuff out. And again, you'll get to see the video. It was like I got maybe 5 minutes of video. Like I wasn't even putting them on video. I recorded the encampment. I wanted B-roll footage of Energy Court. But when it came to them, the body cam probably caught more, because the body cam, it's not something that we check what it's on. But as for my normal camera, I was actually pointing it at the ground. I was intentionally not putting them on camera just because people have been making a big deal about it. But I think we mentioned to one, I told him, yeah, we're being hated on. People keep saying we're exploited you. And that one guy, who was honestly didn't look so good, was like, nah, dude, it's the opposite. We love the help and stuff like that. And then we went inside. So we went to Energy Court twice. We went before the event and after the event. So we go inside the warming center. I don't wait in line. I just walked in. And that seemed to throw a bunch of people off. And we're not even talking about the people waiting in line. Like, they knew what was going on. They didn't care. But when we just walked in, it's like everyone there was like, whoa, you can't just walk in. We didn't let you in. My glasses were all fogged up. I couldn't see anything. So I asked to speak to whoever's in charge, and the supervisor lady comes. And, I mean, the body cam caught it, so we'll have some audio. I shut my camera off because they were tripping out. But yeah, they're like, no, he's not recording in here. He can't record in here. And I'm like, I just want to ask you some questions. I just didn't want to interview you, see how it's going, see how we can help. And she's like, I'm not going to answer any of your questions. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, you want me to say? So then we left that first time. And then the second time when we came back after the event, it was that same girl. This time we parked right by there, because the first time we actually parked at the grocery store and we walked over. So this time we parked by there, right where the sea cans are for SOS. And then she's outside and she's like yelling at us before we even get there. And she's like, you can't be recording here. Like, right now we're outside, okay? Picture that. We're not even in the warming center. We're just outside in pure on public. And we've got this lady who's supposed to be the supervisor. When I asked her what her shift was, she told me she doesn't have a shift and she's a volunteer. I'm like, what, like, are you court-ordered volunteered or something? Because you don't seem to be a very pleasant volunteer. And then it appeared that those people may be volunteers too, but they looked like security guards. Did you notice if they said security on their uniforms? I couldn't see anything.
I didn't see, but they had like the whole blackout vest, like the security guards in the LCBO had, so I just assumed.
Yeah, it kind of feels like there were 2 paid security guards there. And I mean, like, now that I look at it, like, why? I guess they're trying to maintain the peace, but like, yo, send one of those security guards outside to do some outreach. He could be much more helpful over there. But yeah, there was 2 security guards and her. They really didn't like us. So she's like yelling at me, you can't record here. But I just ignore her. What do you want me to say? I don't care about you. So I keep walking by. We go hand out the rest of our supplies. And then as we're leaving, as we're walking away, like, we literally made a whole bunch of people happy. They're all smiling and they're all happy out there in the back. And they walk back towards the front. And she literally yells, like, stop exploiting people. And the one guy walking by, one of the homeless people was walking by. He's like, no, dude, we love getting stuff. And then he said something about, she's like, you need consent to post it. And the guy's like, I think he was joking. What did he say? Something like, yeah, you need sexual consent. Yeah. Or something like that. I'm like, okay, dude. But yeah, it was a good time. They were playing around. Then the event itself, again, we'll be posting it. We only live streamed the first half because we had to drive back. Like, it'd be way too late to drive back if we didn't leave after that. So the rest of it, Social Rise will be sending us the other half of the video, so we'll be able to put it all together and we'll have a video of the full event. But of the speakers we saw, do you remember who they were? Who was the first one? I don't remember what corporation she's from. I think it was called SOS. Yeah, SOS. That's the sea-can containers that we went and saw right in front of the warming center.
And she talked about how she lost her son to, it was an overdose, I think, and then
Yeah, it was basically he was out on the streets.
And then I remember SOS donates. It started like as a small, just donations every day. And now they donate up to 2,000 items. Was it every week? Every week. And then next speaker was the founder of Busy Bee, or
Busy Bee. No, Busy Bee.
spelled Busy Bee, but it's Busy.
Busy Bee? That's what it is. Busy, like Bizzy, and then B, the letter B. But no, we'll go back to the first one, SOS, real quick. That was the first speaker, so if you check the video, you'll hear it from her own words, but it was a very heartfelt speech. Essentially, she lost her son, and then she started going out, on the streets with the people who were her son's friends and had accepted him or whatever it is, and started bringing supplies with her. So started at just her bringing supplies out on the front line to the people he needed, and then it grew. She started receiving more and more donations, and now that's what they do. So they have an entire sea-can, or row of sea-can containers right in front of the warming center at Energy Court, where people can come in, drop off all the donations, they pick them all up. And then she said they're open once a week for 2 hours. You don't remember? I'm pretty sure that's what it is. We'll check the video again, but I'm pretty sure they're open only once a week for 2 hours. And during those 2 hours, people can come in and grab supplies, and they give out 2,000 items a week in that 2 hours. So that's the type of thing where if there was more support, if they received more donations, if they had more volunteers, they could open twice a week and give out even more supplies to even more people who need them. So those are the type of people that we should support. We did a quick interview with her, so we have all of the information on how you guys can support her directly. Then number 2, as you just said, was Busy Bee. That's Chantal. What does Busy Bee do?
Busy Bee, do you want me to go into like the lore all right now, or just
Whatever you can remember.
Busy Bee, I believe, started out, I don't remember, it was her grandma, but she died, and then she started cooking meals to bring to the homeless, and it started out with just her, similar to the last story, but then more volunteers wanted to help, and it went from 1 meal to 40 to 100 meals, and they cook different sorts of meals and they bring it out to the homeless.
Yeah, so it's a pretty cool concept. Now what Chantal does, or how it started, is she received a donation of produce, like fresh produce and food like that needed to be cooked, but that was very close to expiry. And she took that, she cooked it up, and made meals out of it and delivered it. And then that's where the concept evolves. So now she works with several programs, and she gets donations of food, of groceries and all that, which are typically close to expiry, right? So she'll take them when they're close to expiry. One of the things she was saying is that because they're so close to expiry, most like food banks and other organizations like that won't accept it. So you try to donate this food to them and they'll say, no, we'll be able to get it out to the people before it expires. So she specializes in that kind of quick turnaround. So she'll take food that will be processed in the next 24 to 48 hours. So you can bring stuff that's almost expired right before that expiry date. They'll turn it into something that they can feed to people. And then it turned into more programs too. Like she was talking about the Fill the Fridge program. So for people who are just getting off the street, so if you manage to get off the street into an apartment, and you don't have that much money, you managed to get an apartment, well, they'll come in, they'll fill the fridge, they'll fill the cupboard. So that first big grocery that you do is handled for you, and that takes a lot of pressure off. and now they just top off food as they need it. But if you think about just like salad dressing, ketchup, all of that, salt, pepper, all of the little stuff, if you don't have that and you need to stock all of that, that's several $100s spent just on spices and random stuff. You don't even have your actual like protein meals yet. So getting started can be tough. And then there was a performer who did a blues song. It's like they're a duo, but one of the two had a medical thing and couldn't be there. So someone stepped in. Bobby No Legs, I think they called him. That guy's cool. He was also one of the speakers. But we also stayed for one more speaker, which was, do you remember what they were?
I don't remember his name, no.
Eric. I'm pretty sure it was Eric.
Rock, I think.
No, Connor LaRock is Connor. Eric, sorry, Eric, don't remember your last name. Chanel Duchapelle, something like that. And it is Sudbury FC Homeless Outreach. That's what the Facebook group and the company's called. Yep. Do you remember what they do?
I remember he was talking about plans to what they could do.
Yeah, he came with a lot of ideas, which is the type of things we need, right? So he came with suggestions, plans of things we could do. I can't remember offhand what they were, but we have the video so we can go look at them. The one thing I do remember he was talking about was the blanket run. Do you remember what that was about?
Yeah, he was saying that at the end of winter, everyone who, like all the homeless who receive the blanket, often shoot them out. And blankets are expensive. So he suggested that they go retrieve said blankets or wash them and then reuse them. Something similar to that.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. So they already, get a lot of donations of blankets and they hand out those blankets every winter. But they're essentially, like he said, we're a wasteful society. He's right. We essentially need new donations of blanket every year. So the idea behind the blanket run, which is something that I'm interested in, he was looking for volunteers to run it. I can easily handle logistics on something like this. I can run it, I can handle it properly. I can get the blankets cleaned here, stored, and then returned in winter. The issue is that I'm not in Sudbury, so we'll have to recruit some feet on the ground to actually physically go retrieve the blankets, and then from there we can handle everything else. But the idea is, they're grimy, they're dirty, it's going to be a shitty job. But we also operate an animal rescue and education center where we're very used to dealing with dirtiness and cleaning dirty blankets, because the fact is we're not going to buy new blankets all the time. So we clean those dirty blankets. Now, it's not something you want to do at home in a home washer, not in mass. But there are places who specialize in this. There are laundromats. What I was thinking about is hotels. I know a few people in that industry. Hopefully we can get some that are willing to volunteer the services. If not, there may be a small cost involved. That's where logistics and fundraising and being good at negotiating comes into play. But the idea would be to take these things, get them into commercial washers that are built to wash grimy things. For example, hospitals have amazing washers that can handle this. Now, obviously, no hospital is going to want to get involved and touch blankets that they would consider to be contaminated from an outside source, but we can find people who have these types of commercial washers and dryers that can handle heavy washing like this. Get them washed, get them folded, stored properly so that they're not damaged, and then redistribute them the year after. Now, obviously, there needs to be some kind of pre-screening. There's going to be a certain portion of blankets that are not salvageable. They can't be cleaned. So we'll take what is cleanable out of what is received. The rest is going to go garbage. Clean, recycle that. And then during that off season is also the time where we would be doing certain runs to raise awareness and get additional donation of blankets. And honestly, there's already a lot of blanket donations going around. We just need to get them. For example, I just spoke about our rescue and education center. It's one of the most common donated items for us. People bring in old blankets, old sheets that, you know, they want to give to the animals to be comfortable. The animals do need them, but when it comes to those big, thick comforters, you know, like, that would better be off being washed and sent off to the homeless instead of giving to a dog. You know, the dogs are happier with the smaller blankets. In fact, we often do this thing where we'll get big blankets and we'll cut them into 4, because one big blanket is just too big for a dog. We cut into 4 pieces, and then that gives like a nice sized blanket that will fill one of their beds. It's like that covered mostly everything we did today. Wait, how'd this second LCBO audit go? Do you remember?
Second one, I remember it was pretty casual. And then when we got up to the cash, we asked him about, same as the last time, we asked him about the like grand thefts that were happening. And I don't think he really understood the question, because he was like, oh yeah, it happens every morning.
Yeah, I remember that. That actually got me off guard. So this guy, well, now he was talking about regular theft again. He wasn't talking about like full loads of bags with multiple peoples and then driving away in a car. At least I hope he wasn't thinking of that. Like, that is what we're investigating, right? So maybe we need to send someone out there in the morning with the camera to see what's going on there every morning. But this guy is basically saying, yeah, every morning they're like waiting for the store to open so that they can come in and steal. But I'm thinking he's talking about regular theft, so he's going back to what the same thing that other lady was saying, where theft is a daily thing for them, like, and honestly, it's probably related to the homelessness crisis. I wouldn't be surprised if people out there make their way into the liquor stores and take a bottle here or two. I mean, alcohol is known to keep someone warm. I wonder if there's some science to that. We'll have to research it. Maybe some of our viewers know, they'll comment. Does it actually warm your blood? Because it feels like it does. It feels like it has that effect. And alcohol is also, what you would call it. You wouldn't call it antifreeze, because antifreeze is poisonous. But if you understand what I'm saying, its freeze point is much higher than water. So if you had alcohol running through your blood, would it help your blood stay warm? Would it prevent it from freezing? Could alcohol actually stop a person from freezing to death? Not necessarily in an extreme cold situation. You know, like if you're climbing Mount Everest and it's minus 30 and you're going to freeze into an ice block, I don't think it's alcohol that's going to save you. But if you're in a tent and you're at that threshold where, you know, like you might just succumb to the cold, but it's close, it's right on that line. Could alcohol actually keep someone alive? You know what could keep someone alive? A heat source. If the government would get on top of things. I mean, we've seen how much space is there. You saw how big Energy Court is, right? Yeah. One of the things that Eric from the Sudbury FC Homeless Outreach was talking about is, why don't we take a little bit of material, a little bit of dirt from construction projects and go level that out, because it's full of ruts and all that. So just leveling it out would make it a lot more comfortable for the people who are there. But if you look at just how much space is there, they could easily put up a bunch of tiny homes, bunch of like those 1-bedroom cottages, bunch of what we're really looking at, those immigration camps, I think is what they were calling them. Single room row housing. To be honest, it kind of looks like a prison camp when you look at those things. But they provide shelter, and they're easily heated. They share walls, you know, one heating unit can send them through. Like, there's a lot of space there. Someone was talking about sea can containers, like train containers there, which easily could be dropped off there and turned into housing. Some of them are already insulated. What else was proposed for ideas that could be done there? I don't know, but the city established space for them. Tents are not going to cut it for winter. Why can't we use that space to develop better? And maybe it's up to us to do it. Maybe it requires volunteers. Maybe it requires funding. Maybe it requires people going out there and doing the work for them. But my question becomes, if I go out there with a pre-built shack and start putting it up, am I violating some kind of build code? Do I need a permit to build even a small structure to save a person's life? Would the city stop me? Those are interesting questions. And that brings me back to Busy Bee. Do you remember what Busy Bee said about she was starting to grow, everything was going well, and then the Sudbury Health District came in?
Yeah. They said that they needed a certified kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. So Busy Bee wasn't even selling food. It wasn't like a restaurant or a commercial kitchen that was making food for resale. They were making food, giving it away to the homeless people who need it. But the Sudbury Health District still stepped in and said, you can't do this because you don't have a certified kitchen. So they had to go rent out space. I forget what it is exactly she said. But you know how she was talking on top of the Duplicators building and there was a kitchen there that's being used as storage? You know what she's talking about? She's talking about, do you remember where Mel Brooks used to be? Mel Brooks Martial Arts? Where we were doing Muay Thai. There was a little daycare center upstairs, so you went up there a few times. Downstairs there was a kitchen, and Andy and Dawn used to use it for 3D Colgan cuisine, whatever it was, Colgan's 3D cuisine. That's the kitchen they're talking about.
Wow.
So they took the stuff from that kitchen. The Duplicators donated the stuff that was in that kitchen. And then I don't know if they already had space or they rented space somewhere, but they used that to make a kitchen. Then they got it inspected. So now they had an inspected kitchen so they could cook food to give to the homeless for free. You know, that's what I mean by red tape from the government. The government gets involved in everything. And even though it's a non-profit, frontline homeless outreach that is helping people, the government still stepped in and said, no, you can't do this. That reminds me of a video I watched online. I don't know if you saw this with me, but it was some kid. I'll see if I can find the video and link it in the comments. It was some kid who likes to do this type of stuff. He'll go out, he'll spend his own money buying a whole bunch of stuff, and in this one he cooked some ribs and stuff. It was a really nice meal. He'll cook it all. He'll put it all in these tin containers with tin foil on it. And then he'll drive it out to areas sort of like this. And he'll set up tables and he'll feed the homeless. And in this one video we were watching, a cop drives by, stops, and tells him that he's blocking the sidewalk so he can't be there. So he's like, well, can I move forward right here into the parking space? No, because then you'd be blocking off the parking space. Okay, well, can I move backwards onto this lawn here? No, because then you'll be trespassing on this private property. So they literally shut him down. Now the kid's persistent, so he packed his stuff up, put it in his van. The homeless people helped him pack everything up. He told them where he was going, so he moved over a few streets over somewhere where he knew he wouldn't be bothered and be allowed to do it. And they all came with him and then helped them set back up a few streets away and finish handing out his food. But there was literally people there being there's 3-4 people left in line. They're like, wait, can we just get our food? And the cop's like, no, you can't serve another one of them. You got to pack it up right now. That's how insane they could be. The community tries to help, and these guys will walk in and be like, you're violating some kind of bylaw. And that brings us back to the civil rights and everything that we do with auditing. Laws are meant to protect people. For a law to be valid, there typically needs to be a true justifiable reason. There needs to be a victim somewhere. Because we talk about this law where most laws somewhere, somehow, are violating someone's civil right. It's an acceptable violation. It's a justifiable violation because there's a purpose. It's meant to keep someone safe. But when you start looking at these corporate laws, these building codes, some of them are meant for safety. Yeah. But if we go back to this, oh, you're blocking the sidewalk, blah, 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 you can't feed the homeless here. Well, the sidewalk is a public space. The homeless are public. We're all public. We all have the right to enjoy access to that space. Someone who's walking by can use the sidewalk on the other side, can walk around. They're not preventing anyone from walking by. So who's the victim here? It seems to me that the victim was that cop's ego. The victim is what? The city? Is the city the victim? Really? The city is having his sidewalk blocked? You know what I mean? Like, so that enforcing that type of law, not only do I believe it was a violation of that kid's civil rights, but there's just no point to it. There's no purpose to it. Like, who was the victim here? It's I don't know. It's weird. Another one that makes me laugh here.
Before you keep going. Okay.
Yeah, we're yellow, so our battery's starting to die, as Aiden's saying.
Light flat day. Is it still recording?
No. But yeah, we were talking about this Hamilton bylaw there, where they made a guy turn off his cameras because his cameras were pointing out in public. Well, that's public. But they made a bylaw, blah, 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 blah. But then that same guy has now been charged for feeding a wild squirrel. Yeah, I just saw Chase's face. Obviously, I didn't tell you about this yet. He's like, what the? Yeah, I mean, now I can picture it. I know a few people have commented, and they're like, well, dude, it's because you really shouldn't feed wild animals. And in the city, I get that. Feeding them will make them dependent on the food, will make them come back, and blah, 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 blah. And you really could cause issues by feeding them. But we live out in the bush, and our wild animals are not really wild. They're practically domesticated. If they're around town, they're used to us to a certain point where they might actually rely on our food, especially in harsh winters. We've seen starving foxes, where like there's not enough food for them. The foxes were relying on what they could scavenge in town. And one comment I made is, honestly, if we were to make bird feeders against bylaw, we would commit genocide on squirrels. Squirrels eat more nuts out of birdhouses than birds do. It's a common thing. It's a common problem, but squirrels need to eat too.
I remember way back when, probably wasn't that long ago, but I was young, and in our backyard we had like this family of squirrels that every day we would go and give just like peanuts out to, whatever, and they would always come up to us and grab the peanuts from our hands. It was actually very cool.
Yeah, like we could pet them. They would come into our hands. They would come on us. We could pet them while we were giving them. Do you remember the territory war with peanuts?
No, I don't.
So they would stash their peanuts. Okay, basically they could tell that we had a bag full, so they weren't going to fill their mouths, run back home, and risk us not being there when they came back. So what they would do is run somewhere in the backyard, stash those peanuts, and come back and get more. Then once the bag was empty, whatever it was, we stopped feeding them. Now it was like a weird territorial war where one squirrel would go digging up the other squirrel's stashes. But same concept, where there's so many nuts that instead of like filling his mouth and bringing it back home, he would take a squirrel's stash and move it somewhere else, and go find another stash and move it somewhere else. Then that squirrel would come back, be like, what the fuck? And it would go find the stashes of the other squirrels and move them somewhere else. And these two squirrels were literally in our backyard stealing each other's nuts and moving them like 5 feet away for days. And they would slowly bring some nuts back home. But we basically gave them an infinite supply of nuts. Like, when they look at it, that was their winter's worth of nuts. They didn't have to worry about going scavenging somewhere else and finding more nuts. All they had to do was get these nuts back home, and they were good for the winter. But it was hilarious. So they were like, they would avoid each other. So if they saw each other, they would avoid each other. It's not like they would scrap, but they would take advantage of one squirrel being away to go dig up all of that squirrel's little huts.
Going back to the domesticated animals and petting, I remember actually it was 7th grade for me, so that'd be like 3 years ago. It was Halloween, and I was going around town with my friends, and I saw a couple foxes right down the street, and I'm like, wait a second. I start walking up to it, and it doesn't run away. So I actually gave him a couple of head pats, and all my friends screamed. I'm like, no, don't do it, it'll bite you. But I actually pet a fox.
Yeah, let's be clear, guys. When I say they're nearly domesticated, if you're seeing them in town in the road and he didn't run for cover, he's not afraid of you. They're domesticated. Now, a fox with rabies is easily identifiable. You know, a fox can carry rabies. It can be a scary thing. But yeah, that was a little bit of a rough patch there. But you know what I mean? You can identify them. The fox with rabies is not the fox in the middle of the road looking at you with cute puppy eyes and asking for food. That's not the fox with rabies. Now, you still wouldn't want to get bit by a fox or any wild animals. The amount of bacteria and stuff that they could be carrying in them is no good. So a hospital you go, tetanus shot you go, just to be safe. But yeah, I'd pet a fox. I have no fear of a fox. Now, would I pet a coyote? You guys don't understand how much balls we have out here. Probably. If that coyote was presenting as friendly and came by, I'd probably pet him. Would I pet a wolf? Probably. Would I pet a wild wolf? No, I wouldn't. But there are wolves in sanctuaries. There are wolves by town that are more domesticated. I'm crazy like that. I'd go pet a bear. I've done that. I've actually crashed into a bear with my bike, and he ran off as fast as he could. And I'm talking about pedal bike, guys. He like cut me off. He came across he's coming into the yard from the garage. I was coming down the little path, and he backed his ass out. So I ran right into his ass. To be more specific, it's like I saw him ahead of time, so I like jumped off the bike and threw my bike at him. If you could picture that, if that's ever happened before, where you like kind of hop off the bike quickly and your bike keeps going. Yeah, I like basically whipped my bike at him, and then the bear freaked out, ran down the road, and the neighbor saw all of this. So the neighbor like called the house, and he's like, "Is everyone okay?" Like I saw the kid whip a bike and run in the opposite direction, and then I saw a bear whining running down the road. I'm like, yeah, that bear got more scared than I did, but I definitely didn't stick around to see if that bear wanted to get pet. I whipped the bike at him and I booked it in the other direction. But yeah, I mean, if they present as friendly, I'm not so worried. But I wouldn't be feeding the coyotes and wolves. It's like you don't want them within township territory. You want them to get the fuck out of there. In fact, a few years ago, we had a coyote problem. People were saying, be careful with your dogs. Be careful letting them run loose. And when I was young, and I'm sure if we have some Chapo listeners, you guys will remember this. There was at least 1 year that I remember, it might have been more 1 year, where the wolves were particularly high in numbers and maybe having a tough winter with low food sources, but they were eating dogs. Like a lot of dogs got taken by the wolves. Like a lot of people live with their backyards to the forest, to the point where they're saying, like, if you're not fully fenced off, like, don't even tie your dog outside in the backyard at night. You know what I mean? Like, make sure it's a fully lit area. Make sure that he's tied like 10 feet from the house and not at the edge of the property, because wolves were going around targeting dogs. You know, so in those senses, like, those wild animals, get them the hell out of there. You know which other ones I don't really like? Like, they're cute at all, and we named one of our dogs after them, or nicknamed them a trash panda, because we had a dog that was a real trash panda. But raccoons, as cute and all that they're one of the easier domesticated animals that live. You know, they've learned to cohabitate with humans and they live within us. But they make messes. They'll go dig through your garbage, and they make entire, they are essentially a nuisance. And if you're not locking up your garbages, and if you're making it easy for them to access, well, that encourages to keep coming back and doing more. We had the same issues with bears before. Like, now we have bear bins everywhere, so we can go put our garbage in the bear bin and lock it up. But that's because bears take garbages from our backyards. And if you leave your garbage out exposed and bears are able to get more and more of them, well, it encourages them to come back, and they keep doing this nuisance thing. So in those senses, I understand you don't want to feed the wild animals. They're wild animals, and you want them to stay away, not come nearby. But I'm a big fan of cohabitating. They're part of this earth too. and we keep saying we have the civil right to enjoy public access. Well, animals should have animal rights to enjoy the crown land as well. We can't say that it belongs to humans and no animals are allowed in town limits. If they're walking through town, they're walking through town. It's something we deal with. And actually, you remember how we did that Wolves on the Move article? So we talked about that too, where once we started tracking the wolves and they started mapping their movements and all that, there's a few companies who willingly, no one forced them to, once they learned that, what they were doing, their things or what they were planning on doing were in the path of the wolves migration, they were in the movement path of the wolves, they moved it. They, like, one of them moved, I forget what it is, some kind of drilling platform or something like that, moved it 2 kilometers away, because apparently it wasn't much of a hassle to them, and by moving it 2 kilometers away, they took it out of the wolves' movement paths. So, we should be able to cooperate with these things. Does that mean we should go around feeding coyotes and wolves and raccoons? Probably not. But hey, I hand feed squirrels. If you want to come charge me for it, go for it. I'll challenge that one too, and we'll see if it's a civil right for us to hand feed a squirrel. Just like, honestly, it should be a civil right for us to feed a homeless person. What are you doing telling me that I can't cook food and bring it to a homeless person because I don't have a commercial shelter or a commercial kitchen? I mean, that's a weird one. But yeah, I don't know how long we've been going right now. Over an hour, maybe? Close to an hour? But yeah, we're gonna be ending this one here soon. And actually, the camera's still good, go for a while. So I think yellow light means audio recording. All right, well, that's gonna be it today, folks. Thanks for listening. Hopefully, you didn't get bored of our voices. And we'll see you next time on the Father and Son podcast.